good evening, good night, wherever you are. Welcome to Mini Indie Game Reviews, a place where I'll be reviewing indie games that are short, sweet, and straight to the point. Today we're going to be looking at Tower Fall Ascension, which is an indie game developed by an entity known as Map-Maze Games, the same people that gave us the classic known as Celeste. But seeing that this game came out before Celeste, it's easy to kind of see some of the things that will be carried over into that game. I get into what those things are throughout the review, just a heads up. So within this game's development, when it was just known as TowerFall, it was released exclusively for the Ouya gaming console. Oh, you don't know about the Ouya? Well,
like many of the games that are on the system, the Ouya is very rough. It's unfinished.
Imagine if you could press a button and reset an entire industry.
TowerFall was created by one Matty Thorson, but I would say between 2013 and 2014, TowerFall came over to the home consoles, which is now dubbed Tower Fall Ascension. Some consider this version the definitive experience of the first game, while others actually consider this a sequel to the TowerFall released on the Ouya. Now, I got the PS4 version, and embedded into this game is the option to actually purchase an expansion known as the Dark World, which I purchased as well. I'll be covering that too, so let's get into it. So like Celeste, this game retains a pixel art style that is bright and has the charm of a 2D side-scroller Zelda game. The characters that you'll come across possess a cute little charm to them. For instance, when you play as this character, when she's hit, her hood will come off her head. Then, whenever I looked at the world map, it always brought me back to the old classic NES days. Whenever the player selects a stage to go to, you'll see that each stage does just enough to make themselves distinguish from one another. But not just only within their themes and their backgrounds, but also within the type of enemies that you'll see. Everything down to the movement and the details of how your enemies behave was done masterfully. There were no drops within the frame rates or glitches. This game almost feels nostalgic given the aesthetic. And overall, from a visual perspective, this game looks as playful as it is chaotic at times.
I see the signs and omens. As the tide rises, we must unite to save TowerFall. As our world crumbles and splits into chaos, the demons and monsters spread among us. I only hope we're not too late.
Don't let the trailer fool you, this game has no story to it whatsoever. When booting up the game, I was just thrown into battles immediately at different locations to defend from enemies. Other than that, I don't even think this game has a smidget of a plot to it. If you like games that you can play with your friends at a get-together or a gathering, chances are this may be one of the games you might want to look into. This game is a 1 to 4 player brawler, kinda like Smash Brothers, where the player must defeat monsters in a stage-like arena. So I guess you could say this is kinda like a fighting game with platforming elements peppered into it. The player can choose from a few characters, and if you have the Dark World expansion, each character will have a different skin where their appearance may change just a bit. In the primary campaign, the player is taken to different places containing more levels. Once the level is beaten, more will be unlocked at this somewhat world map. And again, if you have the Dark World expansion, even more levels will be added to it. But on to the combat. The thing is, punching and kicking is usually what one would expect when it comes to games that you have to do combat against another opponent. But instead of that, this game limits you to the use of a bow and arrow, and things that fire projectiles, but for the most part, just bow and arrows. You use these weapons as a way to defend yourself, and you have a limited amount of ammunition. Well, sort of. You see, in this game, you behave like an archer on a strict budget, in which you'll have to physically retrieve your arrows after use. If you don't have any arrows, for the most part, you SOL. But once you get your arrows back, or at least the ones that's near you, you're back in the game again. There are certain elements in this game that help shake things up a bit. The first thing being on these openings located usually at the corners of each stage. Going into these entrances will have the player coming out on the opposite side of the stage. This can be used strategically depending on your placements and timing. For instance, if you fire an arrow in one of these openings, you could potentially hit an enemy that's on the opposite side of the screen. The same thing can be said about jumping on top of the enemy's heads, Mario style. If you jump through an opening on the bottom of the stage, you can come out on top and land on the enemy's head. That is, if your timing is right. While we're on the topic of mobility, the player can move around, jump, and also hang from ledges. But, going back to using your environment for your benefit, you can also shoot an arrow through a place of fire, which will allow the arrow to catch on fire, and if you hit the enemy, it will provide them with a long damaging effect. Also, there are treasure chests that are dropped randomly at any given time, and once obtained, these things can provide the player with beneficial things like defense buffs, and even arrows to hold on to and use. Each stage comes with a number of rounds with waves of enemies, or sometimes mini bosses. You have to survive each of these rounds, and to keep note of this, you have to pay attention to your health. The player has a number of lives located at the top right of the screen and each can be taken out with just one hit. And for the most part, this pretty much is the gist of the gameplay. But the variety of enemies and environmental factors of each level is what's going to have the player switching up their strategies and thinking about their approach. Some enemies will go ultra instinct and dodge your arrows, leaving them to only be defeated by stomping on their heads. Speaking of switching things up, the Dark World expansion probably does the best job at allowing the player to obtain and utilize a set of helpful handicaps and abilities that will make you have somewhat of a fighting chance against these gauntlet of battles. As a matter of fact, the expansion is probably more of a digestible and easy experience than the actual main game. In the expansion, you pick from 3 things that will greatly help you out, or 3 things that will make your fight more of a challenge. And I think that's only for the people that have something to prove, because why make things harder when you can easily select the difficulty before engaging in a battle? But anyway, you have a number of times in which you can get hit, and after you massacre all the enemies, a portal will open up for you to jump through so you can move on to what is equivalent to the next round in the main game. Now what I love about this expansion is the simple fact that when you die, you don't go all the way back to round 1 like in the main game. Instead, you start again on the round that you lost and keep moving forward from there. Overall, the game is fun and addicting. There's just only one thing that I kinda wish that you would keep in mind. Do not play this game alone. If you do, prepare to rack up them death counts. Other than the enemy in your environment, the last thing that you should watch out for so you don't get killed by it is actually yourself. You see, there are going to be bombs on certain stages, and if you shoot them, they will explode, and if you're in the vicinity when they explode, it's not going to end too well for you. And also, if this isn't common sense enough, do not shoot your bow directly into the air and stand up under it. As simple laws of physics tell you, what comes up must come down. Keeping this in mind and also staying mobile from your enemies and defending yourself, you may stay alive a little bit more longer. If you don't feel like playing the main game, there's also another option known as trials. In this particular mode, the player goes through level to level disposing of these enemy looking like baskets. You dispose of them by either shooting them or stomping on their heads like any other enemy. However, within this mode, the level design is going to ask the player to come up with creative ways in order to complete the task. In other words, this mode is going to test the mobility and how accurate you are with your bow and arrow skills. Again, in comparison to the game Celeste, those funny sound effects that you will hear in that game is present here as well. These weird sound effects just goes off blasting into your eardrums. You would normally hear these sound effects when you're picking your characters, and of course when you get hit and lose a life. Besides that, get used to hearing metal clinging whenever your arrow is avoided, and sound effects coming from you just moving around, picking up things, and of course from your enemies that will dish out attacks. Tower Fall Ascension and the Dark World expansion was composed by Alec Holloway, which really kinda came as a total shock to me. He is the main person who co-developed and has also done the soundtrack to one of the well-known indie games in the indie community, known as Night in the Woods. Preceding Alec's death by suicide, the polarizing speculation around him and this lady here regarding accusations, cancel culture, and mental health resulted in something that I can only consider tragic on many aspects. But that's a rabbit hole that I'd rather not get into. Now back to the music. In Tower Fall Ascension, Alec brings an adventurous vibe to the music that he provides. Some of the songs are quite upbeat in some areas, and he successfully brings different songs to accommodate the type of theme of the level that you're going to be fighting on. Now, after this review, the only place where it's available for you to pick up his OST is on his Bandcamp. I'll provide the link in the description below if you want to check out his OST. With everything covered, I'm going to give TowerFall a 7.5 out of 10. But when you play this game with others, this rating can quickly skyrise to a 9 out of 10, easily. When you play with others, things can become a tad bit bearable than what the player will have to face playing by themselves. Keeping up with monsters, their types, their attacks, and arrows on top of so many other things that you have to be aware of can make things challenging. To put it quite simply, your ass is going to be handed to you. The difficulty spike definitely kicks in after the second stage. After that, you're going to learn how to maneuver and sharpen your techniques and instincts by trial and error. But anyway, this game is now available for that discounted console that I mentioned before, Steam, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Nintendo Switch for about $15. And then you have the Dark World expansion, which will be another $10, bringing you to a smooth $25 if you want to experience all that the title has to offer. If you have played this game before, let's talk about it. Until next time, be safe out there, and peace y'all.
And don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit up that notification bell, and I gotta go.